Hi there singers and welcome to Total Voice TV. Today I'm so excited to be in the city of Vienna, Austria, and with this incredible lady. This is Renée Maranan, and vocal instructor from Seattle, USA, who has a special interest in a topic that troubles us greatly. You know, they say the number one fear for people is public speaking, and I say the number one fear is public singing. And so to talk about all things stage fright and nerves and performance anxiety, let's welcome Renée Maranan. Renée, can you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Oh, sure. So I am a vocal instructor based in Seattle, Washington. I'm also a singer and a songwriter. I also train vocal instructors as well throughout the world. First and foremost, a singer and a musician.
Now, Renée, how did your interest in this whole topic of performance anxiety or stage fright develop?
It developed because I struggle with performance anxiety myself. I've struggled with it since a very early age.
Yeah.
It is something that has been a constant companion in my journey as an artist. In some cases, it has been severe enough that it seriously debilitated me as a performer.
Sure.
And made the experience of performing very unpleasant and sometimes very traumatic. But of course, singing is something that I've always loved, and it's not something that I intend to ever give up on. And I decided that I was going to learn more about the topic, learn ways to cope with the fears so that I can continue to thrive as an artist.
For me, I know that feeling where your hands are sweaty, the heartbeat starts racing. I have this kind of irrational fear. I start thinking that, what if you've forgotten how to sing? Like, what if you open your mouth and like all those years of training have just disappeared suddenly and you can't even sing? What's it like for you?
Well, I've experienced all of that. I've experienced the clammy fingers, the clammy hands, sweat, cold sweat, feverish chills, throwing up, nausea. I've experienced loss of appetite. Sometimes for days, I would get it so that my energy gets to a level that's so high I can't sit still, I can't concentrate, I can't focus on anything, and that's when a lot of those invasive negative thoughts start to come into play because you just can't get a hold of your mind. Probably the worst experience I ever had with one time I had to play the role of Tuck Tim in The King and I. At the time, the area where I was performing in was completely polluted because of wildfire smoke. And it, of course, for a vocalist, that really harms your singing. I was so anxious that I actually started crying on stage, fortunately after the song. But I had a panic attack right before the show started.
Where do you think this fear comes from that, you know, that really snatches the love of the act of singing? You know, it can be quite debilitating at times.
Fear is a very natural part of performing scenario, especially when you're performing in front of an audience member. And it could be an audience of one. It could come from, you know, the expectations that come with public performance. You know, you perceive that other people want you to do well, or they expect you to do well.
Yeah.
And perhaps you're not feeling secure enough in your own skill. Perhaps you're not feeling prepared enough. Perhaps you haven't had enough experience knowing that you're going to be able to make it through. There are different kinds of attitudes that make people more vulnerable to fear before a performance as well. If you have naturally a very negative outlook in life, then that could tend to, you know, make you more fearful. But I think at the base level, it's just a fear of the unknown. You're just not sure if you're going to be able to do this well. When there are other people with their eyes on you, it's a very scary thing because you feel this perceived need to impress other people, and being unsure of whether or not you can meet that expectation can be very, very frightening for a lot of people. At the heart of it, that is really what triggers the stress that, you know, that comes with performance.
The thing that bothers me most about fear of performing is the self-talk that accompanies that, where I know I'm being stupid, I know what I'm thinking is irrational, I know that I haven't forgotten how to sing. It seems to be like this all or nothing thinking where you are kind of going, you sound really bad right now, which of course is untrue, because no one sounds completely bad or completely good at any one moment. Or, you hear someone laugh in the audience and you think, they're laughing at me right now, which you don't know why they're laughing. And it's like I'm having a conversation in my mind about the thinking and saying, stop being an idiot.
Self-talk is a very big part of our human experience. We talk to ourselves all the time, sometimes out loud, and that internal dialogue, it creates your reality. Catching yourself in the act of saying these very negative things about yourself, whether or not they're founded in truth, it's irrelevant. Being extremely unkind to yourself and being extremely critical or sometimes even destructive. One of the worst things that a performer can do as far as boosting their self-confidence. And this is applicable not just to performing situations, but to life in general. You can't switch off that voice just because you're in a different situation. How you speak to yourself in a performing situation would be a lot more effective if that was the same way that you spoke to yourself in your life. And imagine how empowering it would be if we were all kinder to ourselves on a daily basis. Imagine how much kinder we would be to other people if we spoke to ourselves with kindness. Cultivating that kind of mentality is so powerful because it not only improves us as performers, but it improves us as people, which is the same with music. Music does that also, right? It improves us as artists, but it also makes the world a better place. And that's one of the things that I'm the most passionate about as an instructor, is getting to the heart of those matters, because I feel that it creates a whole person.
Coming to a crux now where I wanted to ask you practical things about strategies. If you are a singer who gets terribly scared and suffers from stage fright and anxiety, is that just the way things are? Is it going to be like that forever? Are we stuck in this place? Or are there things that we can do that will change the situation dramatically for us?
Is it something that you can completely vanquish? I don't believe it is.
Sure.
The fear reflex is simply too strong because it's rooted in the human need to survive, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the fight or flight reflex. That is not something that you can do away with. That doesn't mean that it's not something you can harness or control or learn to adapt to, so that you can perform in spite of the reflexes that are being triggered in those high stress situations. We see this being done all the time in the field in sports. We see it now being done in professionals who work in high stress fields such as emergency responders and firefighters and soldiers. And we see these kinds of strategies now being employed to help individuals who are regularly exposed to high stress performance situations. And so there is absolutely a way for people to learn how to live with the symptoms, right?
This is so crucial because I think that performers often imagine that their job is to get rid of the fear.
Right.
And what you're saying is, we're not trying to get rid of the fear, we just want to become better friends with the fear.
Exactly.
We want to become better equipped to manage the fear that is natural, that we all feel as performers.
Exactly.
And so what are some of the strategies that you have found particularly helpful with the singers you work with and with yourself as a performer? What kinds of things would you do to make friends with your fear?
Oh, there are so many different strategies available. People always talk about meditation as being a very powerful tool, centering breath as being a very powerful tool, even physical fitness, being involved in high intensity interval training and sports and things like that, just to help with the physical symptoms of an adrenaline rush. Personally, I love imagery. I have a routine of cultivating a mental practice where I put myself in a place of calm and security. And there's this great book by Don Green, which I really love, called Performance Success. And in that book, he talks about an idea called mental safe zone, or a mental boundary. Okay, and in a mental boundary, you are imagining yourself in a place, fictional. It doesn't have to be a real place, where you are located, where you can perform, and you have a boundary that surrounds you, which allows your image and your sound to go out, but nothing can come in. And I love it. I kind of imagine this place for myself every day, and I kind of like to go there And it just allows me to experience the sensations of security and safety, which then allows me to feel more courageous and more confident.
So before a performance, would you put yourself in this space? Like you're backstage, you're about to step out.
Absolutely.
You're going to close your eyes, picture yourself in this place of safety where nothing can stop you.
Absolutely. And it doesn't work as well if you only do it right before a performance. It works best if you do it as part of a daily routine. You know, it's the same way as working out your body. Working out your mind also needs to be a daily practice.
You really hit on something key there, is that we practice our craft of singing, we practice our repertoire, we learn our words, we develop our voice technique, but one of the things that we often neglect is just to develop our performance craft. Part of that is practicing being nervous, practicing responding, and what you're saying is really about training the mind to cope with the stress of performance. I think so many singers fail because they neglect to realize that if you just step out and do a performance without working on the mind and its role in your performance, you know, you can really come unstuck out there.
Not knowing how you're going to feel in a room
with
an audience in front of you can completely throw you off balance. It causes all kinds of physical symptoms. It'll cause you to tighten up. It can cause you to blank out, you know, and lose your memory. I think that the mental aspect of performing is something that should be incorporated into every singer's practice routine.
Do you have any thoughts on managing nerves via substance? Contemporary singers, the idea of having a quick swig of a glass of wine or alcohol and trying to use the numbing effects of alcohol. I saw a documentary only a couple of months ago that was looking at the use of beta blockers and how that had become such a problem now that all these musicians are sharing drugs which are really prescription medicine. What are your thoughts on, you know, using substances?
Personally, I would never think about using substances for myself, simply because my personal belief is that when you put something into your body, it could be pretty safe to say that it's going to do one thing, but it usually will do other things that you don't intend it to do. And my question is, are you educated enough about the side effects of the substance that you are taking? Are those substances worth, you know, the benefit? Seeking options that heal you and empower you from within, rather than seeking out substances that'll just numb you on the surface level. But underneath that, those fears will still exist. You will still remain powerless. You're only feeling less vulnerable to them because the symptoms are being masked.
We actually need to feel the fear. We think that our job is to completely eliminate the fear, and that if we do that, our performance will be stronger. But my experience has been my performances are the strongest when I embrace the fear, when I accept the adrenaline rush. I become hyper-concentrated, I become more able to deliver a great performance than if I was somehow to numb that sense or numb that vulnerability. If we think about some of the great singers, you know, that's what we love about them, this sense of vulnerability, the humanity of it. So, you know, I don't want to be a robot that just delivers a performance that's perfect, you know, from go to woe, as if I was pressing play on a recording and it just went through and stopped like that.
There's no risk involved in that. W. Timothy Galway, who wrote the fabulous book, The Inner Game of Tennis, which is really the pioneer. He discusses the idea of fear in his book, you know, and he uses the example of surfers. I can't think of a more dangerous sport than getting out into the open ocean and, you know, confronting these 20-foot waves on a tiny board. Surfers will describe that experience as transcendental. A big part of the positive experience of surfing is connected to the fear that comes with it. And I think that the reason that they're able to transcend that fear is because, like you said, they have become friends with the fear. Fear is something that is put in humans to remind us ultimately that we are finite beings. There is an edge to our abilities, but it also gives us a line.
A spark. Yeah.
Yes, you know, it gives us a spark, and it also gives us sort of like a point to shoot towards. If this is my edge, I'm going to go right towards it and see how close I can toe the line. And towing the line is what gives a performance that sense of excitement. When an audience can sense that risk in a performer, just like a surfer, you are hanging on to the edge of that board with this giant, waiting to eat you alive. It's watching that, that's what, it suspends you. It freezes time. That is the element that makes a performance special, and you can't do that without fear.
Another strategy that has been very successful for me has to do with the preparation of knowing the music, knowing what's inside the music, what the intention is, what the lyrics say, what I want it to say. And I've found that as we become more fearful in our performance, we become more inward focused. What if I make a mistake? What if people think I'm a bad singer? If we can somehow take the focus off ourselves and onto the music. I have this piece of music and I love it and it's beautiful and I want to share it with you right now, and I want you to feel about this music what I feel. I want to bless you and bathe you in this beautiful music. Connecting somehow on a deeper level with the music is a really important strategy for addressing that fear.
For me, the nerves end the second I can get on stage and make eye contact with an audience. And the second I make that connection, fear is gone. It brings me back to the reality that I am there not to be a robot. I'm not performing the music for the audience. I'm performing it with them. That's the magic of live performance, is that their energy and their response to you is a part of your performance. You need them. And they need you. And that's a beautiful thing, So when you're out there, look out into the audience. And, some singers will say, I don't want to look at the audience because I don't want to see them staring at me. Looking at the audience reminds me they're in this with me. And it gives me infinitely more courage because I know I'm not in this alone.
Yeah, and there's a point of humanity, that it's my humanity and your humanity connecting that makes this a special experience.
Yes.
Often our fear is about something that hasn't happened yet.
Correct.
We're thinking that this performance is going to be the worst, but the performance doesn't happen until you step out there and you make it literally in the moment.
Yes.
It's being open to the possibility that anything can happen in that moment. And that's what being involved in performing arts is all about.
To be a real artist, to be a real performer, to be a successful performer, you need to be comfortable with that edge. And surfers will never excite an audience by riding a baby wave, on a boogie board. What excites people is when you confront this big wave and you don't know if you're going to make it, and they don't know if you're going to make it. Embracing the unknown, the idea that you are basically making this up as you go along. It's a challenge, but I think it's a challenge worth overcoming, and that is what separates mediocre performers from the greats.
Now, just before we go, you mentioned one resource for singers being the Inner Game of Tennis. I also know there's one called The Inner Game of Music.
Yes.
Both great books. Are there any resources that you would recommend?
There are a lot. I love this blog by Noah Kageyama called The Bulletproof Musician.
The Bulletproof Musician.
Which he
is
also
great.
has a training program for musicians. Don Green, I mentioned earlier as well, is an author who's written several books about peak performance, audition success, performance success. Fight Your Fear and Win is one of my favorite books. I love the books by Daniel Coyle, the Talent Co. He also has this great little book called The Little Book of Talent. And it's just got these little nuggets about how people learn and how people kind of practice. There's also Talent is Overrated. That's a wonderful book as well.
Wow.
So many different resources. But absolutely, Don Green, I would say Noah Kageyama is a really good one. And Timothy Galloway. I actually prefer The Inner Game of Tennis, just because it's the book that started it all, and I just love the writing in that book. It's so simple, it's so accessible. Even if it's about tennis, I felt like it was so relatable. I also really love to observe professional athletes who have made it in their respective careers. Kobe Bryant is somebody who I really look up to as far as what he's done for himself as an athlete and as a person.
Sure.
He's got a very, very strong approach to high performance mentality. Other greats like Michael Jordan, and you can really learn a lot from from people who play sports.
For the viewers today, you do singing lessons, I know, in Seattle, USA,
Yes.
and to the world via Skype.
Yes.
How can people contact you if they would like to know more about your work or get some coaching with their performance anxiety concerns?
Sure. So you can find me on my website at www.reneemaranan.com.
And we'll put those details on your screen right now. It's been a pleasure to talk to you today, Renee. There has been so much value and so much food for thought. I hope that you found some strategies now that you can take away and make a difference with your singing. Thank you for joining us for Total Voice TV. Until I see you next time, be well, keep singing, and remember, you were born to sing. Bye.
Bye.